Well, I travel for work, and when I'm gone, I'm usually gone for a week to 2 weeks, sometimes 3 at a time. And every time I come home, this is what I find. My bench is just covered. Well, I think that'll work. So, I've got this kind of video series I've been kind of working on. They're mostly related. I've got a product here I've been waiting to use, and I just finally got to the point we're going to do it. So, let's get set up, and we'll get to it. Well, anybody who's used a Bitzenburger fletching jig, there's a universal experience we've all had. And that is, you've got your arrow in there, and you go to twist the knob, and it doesn't quite click into place, and you don't realize it until you're putting the next fletching on, and it's out of place. The other thing you run into is the nock receiver in there. Sometimes the arrow's not seated right. So by the time you get done with an arrow and you pull it off, you realize those fletchings aren't straight, or one's higher than the other because the arrow wasn't set in there properly. There's a product that's supposed to fix that. So we're going to get this installed and fletch a couple arrows with it. So this is a higher quality material than what the Bitzenburgers are made out of. Nock receiver, well, it's kind of hard for you guys to see that there. There we go. But let's get this apart. All right, pulling this out's pretty easy. I watched a video or two, so we got to just back out our detent screws. We don't want to go all the way though, because we don't want to lose the spring and the ball that's in there. But we want them out as far as practical. Then there is a flathead screw right here. I don't think that has to come all the way out. The thing we want to be concerned about is we want to make sure those balls don't fall out of there. Okay. And this just simply goes back into place. I want to make sure that is in the detent. There we go. So now that's on there. That turns free. And you just reset your detent screws. Put those back in just a little bit. Now the knob that I got, it comes in two different models. You can get the one that matches what the Bitzenburger is, which is the 120, 90, 75, 105, which is the one I got. They also have one that'll do a 6 fletch, I believe. So I'm not quite interested in that. 4 fletch is plenty. And that's what we're going to be doing today. So I'm going to set that to 4 fletch, and we'll give that a couple clicks. Oh, that is solid detents. Oh, that's a very different feel. All right. Okay. The other thing this will do, and this is what's nice, is there's a screw right here. And what that does is it allows the nock receiver inside to be disconnected from the knob. So that way you can actually index arrows. And let me show you what I'm talking about. So now if you end up with an arrow that's missing a fletching that you want to match, or the other thing I ran into a lot was I have my arrows indexed to a very specific point and I want it to be fletched nice and square with that index mark. So what you can do is if you put your arrow in the receiver, put that in there, right? It may not line up the way you want. So what I used to have to do is I would have to twist the nocks and cheat the nocks a little bit. But you don't have to do that now. What this offers is this little screw on the side here. You can loosen it up and it releases the index inside. So you can move this without the knob twisting. So what that allows you to do is if you've got an existing arrow that you're trying to match, you can put your clamp on here like this. And now you can line that up and twist it and reset this so that now when you pull this off and click it, it's going to be indexed to the right spot and you can re-fletch this arrow and they're all going to be even. So the thing I'm going to use it for though is to ensure that it's lined up on my index mark so that I'm getting a straight 4 fletch on there that looks the way it's supposed to. All right, well, I figured I'd talk about this because I'm sure someone's going to ask, Matt, what happened to your clamp? Well, I decided it needed a little adjustment. So I cut the end off because there's a lot of times these clamps weren't even, especially from the base to the tip. They kind of had this big curve to them, and so when you put them on your arrow, they wouldn't sit the vanes very well. So I cut the end off. The other thing I did was something ridiculous. I'll show you a clip of it right here. So I took a piece of sandpaper, wrapped it around a shaft, put it in my drill, and ultimately what I ended up doing was sanding down the face here on the clamp so that it would conform to my arrow a little better. I shoot the same arrow out of everything, so they're all the same standard diameter arrow. So I figured, why not make my clamp fit the arrows that I shoot? Now let me show you a couple things that have really helped. So again, cutting that end off helped. Grinding that down a little bit with some sandpapers helped. But because of that, I've actually been able to get a little more twist out of this Bitzenburger. And one thing that really helps is if you put your vane in here. I'll see a lot of guys, and I used to do this too, they'll put the vane tight right against the base. Well, here's a little thing I figured out that works. If you leave that sticking out just a hair, something like that. And when I say a hair, I mean like an eighth is all you need. Just enough, especially like on this end, that the vane can kind of move back and forth a little bit. Now what that's going to do for you is when you put this on here, let's see if I can put this on a camera so you can see it. It will allow that vane, let's get some light on this thing. So as it comes down and seats, you can watch the tip of that thing will conform to the arrow. So what that allows me to do is I get a little more twist out of arrows. So this is one that I fletched without modifying it all. This is about the most helical I could get out of this Bitzenburger, and I've got the right helical clamp, and it's not too bad. But after modifying it a little bit, I've been able to add quite a bit of twist to this thing. So if you compare these two side by side, you know, it's pretty obvious. There's probably a full degree, if not more, of twist that I'm getting out of it now. And especially with these low-profile vanes, I'm really digging these ice vanes. I really like these. Boy, they fly great. Especially now that I've added this little extra twist to them. They seem to have great control over these arrows that I've been shooting out of it. These are the heat vanes. Honestly, these tend to have a little bit too much control, I think, with this lightweight arrow. That's just a little much having those in a 4-fletch. But these ice vanes in a 4-fletch work awesome. All right, so what I'm going to do is I've made sure this nock is exactly where I want it on that 4-fletch. It's perfectly squared up where I want it. So I'm going to put this in here, set it in there, and I am going to use this feature to set these vanes exactly where I want them. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to clamp this back onto the arrow. So that way my 4-fletch configuration is right where I want it. Tighten this down. And now, as I move on from fletching, these things should all line up exactly the way I want them off my nock and my index marks that are going to be on top. So, here we go. All right, we're going to put the new Bitz Knob to the work. I've got these Warriors that I have been using to kind of work this bend test theory through. These arrows ultimately are going to get built to match the hunting arrows, but I'm going to use half of them, and I'm going to fletch them and shoot them out of my Elite for two things. One is I'm working on some theories with the bend test, just trying to prove to myself more and more how effective it is and that it works. The other thing is I want to see how the Elite likes the stiffer spine. It seems to be liking the stiffer spine better. So I'm going to fletch half of these with just the 4-fletch ice vanes for now, and then I'm going to go shoot them, and then they'll eventually get stripped, and they'll all get built up to match my hunting arrows. That'll be a completely different video. I'm not going to bore you to death with it, so I'm going to get these together, and then we'll check back in. Alright, I figure there's probably one or two of you that are kind of nerds and want to see what I'm doing. I don't know what you guys are doing. You don't got something better to do than watch somebody else fletch arrows. But I'll show you. So here's what I'm making sure. I'm making sure that nock is lined up perfectly on that index mark. That's step number one, and then it's going in the jig because I've already got it set. It's perfect. I'm taking my very modified jig. I've got a mark down here. That's the base. I'm going to set this in here. About like that. And like I said, I leave about an eighth sticking out along there. It's not tight in there. Again, the big thing is I want to be able to allow that to conform to the arrow a little bit. Then I'm going to add drops of glue along here. Now, I tend to make a mess with glue. You can look at some of my other arrows and they are bad. So, the process I've come up with, I'm sticking my hand in it, is I have found, I went and bought a bunch of these little sticks off of Amazon. You can buy like 1,000 of these for a few dollars. They're just little craft sticks. But what I do with them is I then go through here and make sure this glue was down in the channel all the way. And then I just take this and I roll it across the top, and you can see there's kind of a glob there that comes off. And that really helps prevent me from over gluing. And I use about, I don't know, one of these per arrow, maybe a couple arrows. Now the thing I really want to show you, and I hope the camera picks this up. So as I set this on here, I clip it on and I butt the base down here first. And then as I go up the side, if you watch right at the base of the vein, these yellow veins, I can actually see as they seat. You can see the air go out from underneath them. I don't know if you guys can see that or not. I can just push that down and I seat them from tail to tip. And it usually pushes a little blob of glue out at the top. And I can literally see the air come out from underneath them. So I know they're seated and I know they're gonna glue well. I usually give them about a 15 to 20 count. And we'll move on to the next one. I do it so you can see the vein seat. Just watch right up that. There we go. 1, 2, 3. Again, I just use this little thing to make sure the glue's down in there all the way. A nice wipe, get all the excess off. And count about 20. All right. Final product. What do you think? Pretty sharp if you ask me. Well, they look pretty good if you ask me. Now, these may not be the best fletching job. Understand these are temporary. I'm setting these up so I can shoot them out of my Elite. They're probably going to get shot 10 times, and then I'm going to strip them, and I'm going to build them to match the other arrows. So, guys, thanks for coming along. I hope you enjoyed it. Go watch the video about picking target arrows, because that's what I'm doing. The Elite, I'm trying to decide what my Elite needs. I need to know which arrow, what spine. That's what I'm trying here. I want to see how stiff this thing needs to be.